Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to discuss inner peace, inner silence, and how we can use certain techniques to help us to come to this inner state of perfect poise. I don't think there's been ever a time in human history, really, when there hasn't been so much distraction. You think about it, not only have we got television and we got advertising world and we got advertising and everything pouring in upon us, but we've now got social media that takes all of our attention all the time. I mean, Jane and I were sat recently in a cafe watching people go by, and every single person coming out of the train, there was a train station nearby, every person coming off the train station was looking at their mobile phones like this. They all had their heads down all the way, like this. And I said, oh, isn't that terrible, Jane? Isn't that terrible? And I realised actually both of us on the table had our mobile phones open with Facebook and the rest open. So, we are constantly distracted. We're even distracted from the distractions, aren't we? When we watch television, we look at our iPads or our mobiles and so forth. So we're even distracted from the distractions. And although this is quite bad, I suppose, in human terms, because we don't communicate with each other, it's also doing something very deep and fundamental to ourselves, I feel. It's taking away our ability to sit in silence, as it were, be able to sit with ourselves and just be what we are, because we seem to be always being everywhere except here and now in this moment. So we're not going to get away from all those distractions. So what we have to do, I think, is find a way to make a little bit of space for ourselves where we can, for a little bit, be like the guru, or be like the yogi that's in the forest, that's withdrawn from the world. And I have my own. I'm fortunate in that I have my own little yoga room where I do this. But for many years I didn't. So you need to make a little bit of space somewhere, a little part of the house that's going to be just for you, where you can meditate and tune in. The car, even sometimes, I find can be useful for that, just when nobody's in it. So so what is it we're missing? You see, when we talk about inner peace, we think about things such as, being peaceful within ourselves and being at ease with ourselves. But this idea of inner peace is much, much greater than that when you think about it. Now, behind all form, behind all existence, there is the absolute. Now, there's no words for this, really, so I'm going to say the absolute. But some people call it God. Some people might call it nirvana. Some people might call it, maybe the word I like is perhaps what they use in India, the Brahma, right? So all of existence has form, doesn't it? It has time, it has dimension, it has space, structure. Everything we see around us is a world of form, of manifestation. But behind that, and within it, and containing it, as it were, there's also the unmanifest, the absolute, the infinity of existence. And if one can enter that state, which can happen sometimes in meditation, one enters a state that is indescribable, because it can't be described in terms such as form or anything, because it's beyond form. It's beyond thought. It's beyond even the sense of self and I. You could call it pure consciousness, but it's kind of even beyond that, because consciousness seems to have to be conscious of something, so it's absolute, and when one comes out of that state, and people describe it differently, but because it can't be described, but we can get things that are close to it but don't describe it. So we could call it infinite light, but it's not light, we could call it infinite bliss, but it's more than bliss, it's beyond bliss. We could call it infinite formlessness, but that even implies form, because it's beyond form, So there's many ways of describing it, but one of the things that I feel, and when people talk about, is it's also infinite peace. So one way that when people do meditation and all these forms of meditation, they're all kind of taken us into this same place through through our inept ways of trying to describe it. We might describe it as light, so we might meditate on light. We might describe it as the great sound of Om, so we might meditate on the sound of Om, but it's beyond that too. But we can also meditate upon absolute and total silence and that blissful peacefulness of silence, and that can be another way in to this same place, you know. So all paths to this are exactly equal, you know, whatever method you take are exactly equal, because they all have to be thrown away afterwards, because you go beyond the state of just peacefulness, for example. But I think peacefulness is a way that would be very appealing to many of us today, because we lack so much of it. So there's a very simple technique that I'd like to just share with you that I use when I do my meditations, and it's called Antar Mouna. That's what it is in Sanskrit. And Antar Mouna basically means inner peace. Simple as that. So there's some very simple method that you can use to get into this state. So if you are used to meditating, you might be used to sitting, you might have a place to sit. Obviously, make sure you're comfortable. Now, I've been doing yoga all my life, so I can sit quite comfortably cross-legged on the floor with a straight back, and it's fine for me. But obviously not everybody can do that, so it's quite perfectly all right to sit on a chair as long as you're comfortable. It's best not to lay down, because if you lay down you're more likely to go to sleep. But if you sit comfortably, and it's always a good idea to keep the back straight, because the back is our spiritual energies rise up and down the spine. You know, you've heard about things like the chakras and things, but don't be distracted by that now. But there's our energy goes up and down the spine. So when we enter a state of higher awareness, that spine actually opens up, and our consciousness opens up, all quite naturally, you know, when we can enter that state. So we can get ourselves into a much greater inner peace. So if you can find somewhere where you can be separate from the world and sit quietly, then I'm going to give you the first 3 stages of Antar Mouna. There's actually 6 stages to this, but the first 3 are just as valid as anything, and I want to describe those to you now. So you're sat, your back straight. So you take your attention, first of all, outside of yourself. You know, you're sat in meditation and you look all around you. You take in everything you see. You look all around you, just look at everything, just look at it, and you know, obviously you don't have distractions like television or music on. You're just there looking, just looking. Now, if you do that before you go into your meditation, this acts as a way of almost telling the mind that it's okay to relax. It's like there's no distractions around, there's no threatening tigers, there's nothing to harm you around, you know. You just take it all in. And there's a kind of a way of looking too when you do this, I find. It's as if you just look at it just as it is. Keep this concept in your mind as it is. Be as you are, as it is. It's quite an important thing to carry into your meditation in some ways. You know, not analysing, not jumping on everything, but just look at it as it is, right? And then when you've done that, then close your mind and you're getting ready to go into meditation. So this is the first stage, is to take yourself into meditation. Now, when we go into the meditation, our next step is to become aware of the spontaneous thoughts that are arising in the mind. But that can often be a huge undertaking for people, first of all, because it can become very... When we first go into meditation, we realise the mind is running very, very fast, you know, because that's our natural state. Some people think the mind speeds up when you go into meditation, when you first start meditating. But what you want to do is be aware that that is your natural state of your mind. It's pretty hectic. But I always like to, first of all, use the breath to take me into that first state of watching spontaneous thoughts arise in the mind. Okay, so I use my breath. We just watch the breath. Now, we don't go changing the breath. We don't go trying to suspend it. We don't try to hold it on, you know, at the top of the breath and the bottom of the breath, anything like that. We just watch the natural breath. Now, that in itself calms the mind down. That will bring you into a state of much greater calm, because just watching the breath, which might at first be perhaps even a little bit agitated where you've had a hectic day, but still just watch it and remember this line again: as it is, as it is. You know, just let it be as it is and just watch it. So when you start to watch the breath, naturally your thoughts will become much calmer, and you'll start to feel much more at ease and at peace. You know, maybe it take you a bit of time, but if you know, once you get used to meditation, you'll drop into that almost instantly. But watch the breath. It's always like your anchor, the breath. You can always come back to it, because if you find at any point in meditation your mind's wandered off and you're off thinking about things you probably better not thinking about, all your worries and troubles and things you've got to do and all those hectic thoughts that people have, you know, bring it back to the breath, and it's much easier to let go of those thoughts. Okay? So when we get into this state where we're peacefully at ease, we've letting the breath begin to slow down, then we'll just allow whatever thoughts come into the brain to come into the brain. We watch them arise spontaneously. They just appear. You know, we don't know where they come from, do we? I mean, some of those thoughts we can tell are residues of thoughts we've had earlier in the day. You know, a thought might come up thinking about something that's happened. I lost my keys to the house. Oh, where they go? Blah 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 blah. All sorts of thoughts will come into your mind. You know, but then let them arise and let them go again. Let them arise and let them go again. Now, in psychic work, I do a lot of. I use that technique as well, because sometimes those thoughts that arise in my mind, I realise are not just my own thoughts, but are thoughts that are coming in from other people and vibrations from elsewhere. Because when you look at the field of your thoughts, it's an incredible thing. It's like, where do ideas come from? You know, things pop into your head. Now, the temptation, of course, as I've just described there, is to go, you see something unusual and you follow it through and keep following that thought on and on and on. But the best thing to do is, in this stage, we're only at this point really interested in finding inner peace. There's lots of other techniques I can teach you that can step off from this if you want to experiment with those later. But more importantly, we need first and foremost to get to that inner state, that inner peace. Because then we have clarity of thought. Then we have peace of thought, and then we also have much more power, because our thoughts are not dissipated and they're focused. So this is what I do when these thoughts arise in my own thoughts, because a thought will arise, thump, there it comes. And for me, I'm a very visual thinker, so very often a visual thought will arise in my mind, and I will put my full attention onto that visual thought. So for example, I might see a picture in my mind. Let's think of something. Okay, a nice benign thing, but it might be all sorts of horrible thoughts as well. But something comes up, a flower. Okay, it's a nice image to use. So if I see that flower in my mind, I'd look at it hard with my mind and say, what type of flower is it? You know, so I'll focus on it. How can I see it close up? So my mind will go in and see it close up. Can I see it from above? Can I see it from behind? Can I see it from the side? Can it turn? What colour is it? What does it smell like? What does this object have any sound or whatever? You know, I build the image up in my mind into extremely vivid power. So it becomes so, particularly visually, it becomes so intense and powerful that it's there. I can almost see it. And then, this is the important bit. You now dissolve that thought. This is where we get to the stage 3. Because we dissolve the thought, we dispose of it. So just as we brought the picture up, we see it full intensity, we dissolve it. Now the way to dissolve it is just to let go of it. Boom, let's let go of it. Let's go and let the next thought come. You know, it comes up full intensity. And sometimes the things that you see become absolutely beautiful and you want to continue looking at them, but then just let it go, right? And then another thought will come up. Now, it might not be in visual. Thoughts on many levels. A feeling might come up, right? So I focus on that feeling, I focus on the feeling in full extent, and I let it go again, right? Or all sorts of things. But like I say, I'm particularly visual thinker, and I think most people are fairly visual when they go into meditation. And sometimes the thoughts might all dissolve, and it might all just appear as lights coming through your mind, and your thoughts are just lights. But whatever they are, they just come. You see them, you put your full intensity on it, you look at it and let it go. You know, I often found sometimes that I'll see mandala shapes which will come into my mind, and I see these beautiful mandalas, you know, like the kaleidoscopic patterns. That's what they look like. And I look at those and I see fantastic patterns within it, amazing beauty, and then I let it go, right, and see what comes next, and something new comes. So in this way, what we're doing is we're allowing our thoughts to become our awareness to become more and more refined. We've actually got a kind of a focus on the awareness, and we're also then able to create thoughts, or allow them to be created, and we also allow ourselves to dispose of the thoughts as well, right? So even the spontaneous thoughts that come up can be let go of. So we just come in a flow. So eventually one gets in just a flow of imagery, thoughts, but you're all the time you're just letting it go, letting it go, letting it go, letting it go. Now behind all that, there is an absolute silence. You know, behind all that, all these thoughts are coming like clouds in the sky, but behind the clouds in the sky there's the absolute blue sky that goes on forever. And it's the same with this, really, because thoughts come, thoughts go, we can follow it for a while, but what we want to think about really is the state behind it all, where all the thoughts have gone completely. So this is where I'm telling you some of the later stages here, because when we start to do that, we learn to dissipate the thoughts. You know, we learn to let the thoughts dissolve, let them go away. Okay, but focus simply at the beginning, you know, like just to go through it again. So when you sit down and meditate, you will look all around you. Now in that stage one, actually, when you look all around you, another thing people do, and I like to do this too, is listen all around me, to listen to all the sound, listen to the sound of every noise that's outside before I go into meditate. I'm going back over it again here, but I listen so that if there's a noisy lawnmower somewhere and down the street or something, it's okay. I just accept it as it is all part of the attention. So we can bring our attention from the outside world, then we can bring our attention to the breath. Remember, we watch the breath. We can go back again, actually. We can look at the breath and go back to the outside world, open our eyes again and come back and learn to take ourselves in and out of this awareness, okay? So we've got to learn to become the traveller into meditation. So we're going to go in, we look at the world, we listen to the world, we observe it, it's okay, we go in, we watch the breath. We follow the breath for a while. And as we watch the breath, we'll start to see in our mind's eye, usually through the third eye here, we'll start to see opening up pictures and images and thoughts and feelings. And you kind of feel your thoughts coming, I find them from each field, as it were. Some come from the left, some come from the right, if I describe my experience. Yours will be different. But thoughts come, thoughts go. And it's a learning, first of all, to get full attention on those thoughts, full attention, build the attention up on the thought to its full extent, and then dissipate it. Build it up and dissipate it. And then look again behind this, where are these thoughts? Where is the silence behind it? And actually then we find that all of this is like, all of this is happening in the mind of God. All of this is happening in the great sea of Brahma that extends infinitely to my left, infinitely to my right, infinitely above me, infinitely below me, an infinity of existence in all areas of every direction, which consists of perfect peace. It's full of light, it's bliss, and it's beyond all those things. Okay, so all of these techniques that we learn in meditation, they all take us to this same place, this same idea of being and sitting, as it were, and sitting in our pure state, the state of who we really are, you know? So in a way, what I've described sounds like work, but it's quite the opposite. We do it in an effortless way. We purely move into the silence. Silence requires no effort. It doesn't require anything. We don't have to make silence. We do nothing, right? And it's the same within ourselves. We purely need to go into a state where we just allow ourselves to be in our pure natural state. You know, some people arrogantly go off about, I'm an enlightened person when I go into this state and so forth. It's not. This is the state we are all naturally in. There's no difference. You know, all of us exist. Our pure consciousness exists within this state. You know, nothing is gained, nothing is lost, everything is there. It's just who you are. That's your true reality. So that beats playing all day on these mobile phones and wasting all our time, doesn't it? Because what we can do is we can spend a little bit of time outside of all the hubbub of the world and enjoy a period of simple, basic meditation. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed listening to me there, and maybe take on board some of these techniques. I do describe some of them in my book, Psychic School. There's quite a nice meditation method I describe in that book. But and also when you do, you know, any of you doing psychic work, you know, you need to also do the spiritual work as well on yourself. You must find a space to do the inner work. You know, if you don't do the inner work, then you're completely losing out. You know, you're not doing the full spiritual thing in life. You know, and for all of us, if we can do a little bit of this, we can take a little bit of time out. It doesn't take a lot of time. We'll find that we become very focused as people. We become much more energetic. Our health will improve. You know, there's loads of gains just on the simple mundane level. But most importantly, it takes us to that understanding of who we are. And it's simple, and it takes no effort whatsoever. Easy. Okay, thanks for following me. If you like these talks, please follow the channel. I'm going to don't forget to press that little bell thing. Go and subscribe. And we have lots of things coming up again. We've got all sorts of stuff on this channel. Like I say, I do stuff where I do readings on the channel, and we're doing lots of specials nowadays with all sorts of interesting stuff in the pipeline. Okay, thanks for joining me. See you next time. Bye for now. My book, Psychic School, will show you how to become a psychic or a medium. Over the years, I have demonstrated mediumship, confounded skeptics with the accuracy of my readings, and taught students how to unlock their latent psychic powers. For BBC television, my real-world Psychic School classes were filmed over a year and made into a major 3-part documentary. Now I show you how to recognize and harness your own psychic powers. In fact, these forces may already be at work in your own life through gut feelings, dreams and perceptions. All you need to do is understand how to recognize and channel your abilities. I will show you how to set up a circle that can take you from fledgling psychic to professional medium. Learn about clairvoyance, meditation, spirit guides, aura reading, inspirational speaking, psychic mediumship, and other age-old techniques. Open up to the spirituality within you and learn the rewards that can follow. Psychic School is available from Amazon or my website at psychics.co.uk.